I don't know, it's just saying going live like it normally does.
Oh.
Okay, now it's done. Like this minute. Okay.
So we're live then?
Yeah.
All right. This week we are going to begin our journey through vaYiqra. That's Leviticus chapter 23. But before I do, I want to mention a couple of books. I finished this book and got started on the next one. The surgery really messed with my eyesight, so I wasn't able to read as much as I had hoped, but I did finish this book. I forget where I found this. I think Daryl Lee sent us a video about some people that said that the onkelos was not literal, which it is. But that they didn't mean the same thing by it not being literal as what I mean when I say it is literal. We are literally talking about two different things here. When I say that the onkelos is literal, I'm saying that basically if they give the Hebrew word for whatever and it has been translated by the onkelos from Hebrew into Aramaic, he's generally putting whatever Aramaic word would replace that Hebrew word. So now there are a lot of words that are basically the same word, Elohim. You know, you find that in both languages, the Aramaic, not Arabic, Aramaic and Hebrew are very, very similar. And so a lot of the words are the same. Other times they're the same because there is no Aramaic equivalent. And so he just spells out the Hebrew word using the Aramaic letters. And since the Hebrew Bible is written with the Aramaic alphabet, they come out exactly the same, right? So that happens. And then, but according to this book, and I have not had a chance to check their work because I don't know that they have the language skills for the statements that they have made. They may be getting that from some other source, but their argument was that it's not, the onkelos is not literal because there are times when the onkelos lines up his translation with rabbinic teaching. There was some problems with their arguments because they had the dating of the onkelos improper. Their historical connections were not exactly right. Their knowledge of onkelos was very lacking. And so I would suggest to the two men who, it's called Rabbinic Judaism Debunked. It says Eaton Bar with Golan Broshi. Now, overall, I'm going to give this book an A minus. It's a really good book, but their research was top notch, but you get the feeling from reading the book that neither one of these two men actually attended Hebrew yeshiva, which I did. So their conclusions as to what we yeshiva graduates believe, a little off. Sometimes dead on, yeah, but some other times a little off, and then on a couple, just like two, way off. I mean, way off. Not even close to being right. But that's only two. With all the stuff they did, that's not bad. That's pretty darn good. But there's a little problem with some of their historical arguments. And no, let me say it this way. Yes, the onkelos is a literal translation. Did he ever change the translation to line it up with rabbinic stuff. Like I said, I have not had the chance. I will look to see if he did what he said, because I use Onkelos every week. I have been reading the Onkelos in Aramaic for years, and I have never picked up on that. And again, a yeshiva graduate has never picked up on that. Now, that doesn't mean that it isn't, that they're not right. They may well be. They have definitely got my interest, and overall, I'd say read it. The only thing I would say is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Much of the Talmud is sheer junk. Much of what it teaches is the total opposite of what the Bible actually says. If God said the sky is blue, the Talmud's telling you it's orange. I mean, good Lord. Yeah, there's some really bad stuff in there. And they point out the absolute worst of the worst in this book, which, the Talmud writers deserve. They deserve that. But that does not mean that everything in the Talmud is trash, because it's not. There's good stuff to be gleaned in almost anything. You can't believe how many 1,000, 5,000, and literally 10,000 page volumes of books that I've read over the years from cover to cover. I do that. I've done it for years, and gotten one thing out of it, sometimes nothing out of it. But at least by the time you're finished with it, you know whether it's worth its weight in paper or not. I mean, you can't know till you read the whole thing. And some of them, like the Talmud, that are so full of such garbage, such godless garbage, and it is. I mean, there's a point in the Talmud where two Jewish rabbis are arguing over whose winky is bigger. Really? But they did that. Wow. So, and they point that out in this book. So they do deserve some slapping around, if you know what I'm saying. Not literally, but they deserve some very negative press. But what about the stuff that's good? What about the stuff that, one of the things that they point out is that it's obvious to them that the Jews, particularly of the 12th century, I don't know if they pointed out the century, but I know who they were talking about. This all 12th century guys, mostly, how they got so much of what they taught right out of the Catholic religion. And they did. I've been saying that for years. And it was awesome to read somebody whom I have never met. I know it was someone they have never listened to my teaching. I'd be really shocked to find out that they had, since we're a little bitty thing in the middle of nowhere. We don't try to advertise. We're not trying to build a web presence or any sort. I mean, the whole internet thing is to make it so that our congregants can be a part of this who don't. So, but it's really awesome to see other people pick up on that, and say the same thing, because I sometimes feel like I am out in the wilderness, because it's difficult to find others who are saying the same thing. Overall, it is an excellent book. There are just, I wish it's just so disappointing to me that they didn't have somebody that could say, look, your interpretation of the history is incorrect. Your interpretation of what yeshiva graduates see in that verse is incorrect. And their knowledge between biblical Hebrew and modern, they even point this out, is lacking. Because one of the arguments that they give against, they're arguing against something that's said in the Talmud. The argument actually meant for what they were arguing for, and they were presenting it as an